Good afternoon, everybody. Don't mind my look. I look crazier than hell, so no makeup, but whatever. I had a bout of inspiration, so I wanted to touch base with everybody. I'm learning so much, man. I'm telling y'all, brain science has really expanded over the last decade or so, and I love learning about it, right? I'm obsessed with it. Anyway, working with military and veterans and having, over 10 years in the trauma and victims services, I'm really learning to beginning to understand a lot. Anyway, if you have a lot of adverse experiences, a lot of trauma, or maybe you are a combat veteran who's struggling with impulse control, please share this video with your loved ones. Maybe it'll help them understand it a little bit more, right? So, as I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, by age 3, a child's brain, basically the trunk of their brain is beginning to develop, right? So even before they understand language or anything like that, babies and nurturing is so important in nurturing them so that those neuron pathways develop effectively. Those first few years are even more important to develop healthy, even more so than an individual, that experiences trauma over, say, starting at age 10 to age 20 repeatedly. They're showing more damage as far as brain damage and impulse control and things like that from children who are experiencing this trauma and lack of nurturing by the age of 5. So definitely interesting stuff. I know a lot of people with trauma struggle with impulse control. I know I have a lot of my life and on. I'm beginning to understand it a lot more. So hopefully this will help your loved ones understand you better as well. So when we experience trauma, it comes in through our senses, sight, see, smell, taste, hearing, those, and we experience this trauma through our senses and through our brain stem, right? And as it comes into our brain, our stress response system, our sympathetic and parasympathetic systems figure out what to do with that, right? So our as the trauma comes into our senses, our sympathetic system then figures out fight or flight. What can I do? And it figures out, do I either fight or flight, or if I cannot fight or get away from the trauma or flee the trauma, then we go into disassociation, right? So then after the trauma, our parasympathetic system comes in and it attempts to calm down, produce those chemicals, physiological responses that then again bring back our calm and baseline state. Now, an individual with repeated trauma or exposure to possible trauma, such as combat veterans, childhood victims, things like that, they are continuously activating that stress response system. And over time, that stress response system gets used to producing that adrenaline, right? So that adrenaline then goes into their blood system to create atypical cortisol and adrenaline levels into their bloodstream as well. Well, with that repeated exposure to trauma over, years, say, or being in a combat environment constantly, our stress response systems are in overdrive, which is going to cause people to be hyper vigilant. So now, in experiences when they should be able to process information and calm down, they are hyper vigilant or they lack impulse control, things like that. Now, the best way I can describe it is if you think of a path through the forest, right? You walk upon a forest and there's just a bunch of woods in front of you. You don't really know where to go to get to the other side of those woods, so you just start walking, right? And you walk to that path. It's struggle, it's hard, right? So then the next day you come back to that same path and you attempt to walk that same path. Now that path is a little bit easier because you can kind of see where your footsteps went, things like that. Well, if you keep coming back day after day after day, eventually that path that was first, unknown becomes so prominent that everybody that comes to that path in the woods is going to automatically know, hey, go to this path because it's already cleared. It's free of obstacles, of challenges. We are going to naturally go that way. Well, if we think of brains, it's exactly the same, right? If those neurons, through a healthy and nurturing environment, they're making it to your neocortex in the front part of your brain that's processing, consequences, higher level thinking, order, structure, things like that. It's not ever making it there, right? So you're in constant fight or flight. If those neurons are never making it to your prefrontal cortex and they're constantly repeating in that sympathetic and parasympathetic system, that stress response system is going to become overactive. And just like that path in the woods, now you're back from war and you're living your normal life and you're attempting to engage in life, but those pathways, just like the forest, are natural now in your brain. So those neurons are just going to naturally go to the path that is easy and already forged. And that path is going to take them straight to the fight or flight, the sympathetic system, right? It's going to prepare. That's why you're so easily triggered. That's why people lack impulse control and things like that. It's not there's anything wrong with me, or what am I doing mentally, or I should be sad or ashamed. It is nothing like that, guys. This is science. When you have your brain that has been conditioned and trained to send them neurons straight to your stress response system, you're not thinking things through. Even in times where you can make just even small mistakes, or you jump the gun on things, or maybe you flip out in an argument with a spouse or a partner, things like that. That is conditioned into your brain. Now, the good news is that if you are suffering from stuff like this, there is always techniques and ways to challenge that. So there's meditation, there's TMS therapy, there is, lots of different things, CBT, there's lots of different treatments and therapy. Luminosity, right, I've heard has a lot of great benefits on rewiring the brain. But let's not think of this as like, we're jacked up or we're messed up or, oh my gosh, things can't get better. Let's look at this as a scientific thing and do what it takes to, become better, get control of our impulses, and, contribute to a better and healthier way of thinking for ourselves, and that's going to help influence the people around us that love us, and then our organizations and our communities and just the world in general, right? It's been proven there is so much, not just trauma of individuals, but there's generational trauma, right? Especially within the African American community, which, I learned something today. So I read in one of my books that, a lot of African American people are scared of dogs. And I'm not going to lie, I did notice, that it does seem like more of, my people of color friends, do seem to kind of fear dogs. I was like, and it got me thinking. But as I read further, I found out that dogs were used, 100 years ago and stuff to be able to keep people controlled and, within a fence and within their bounds, which is totally freaking wrong. Well, these generational traumas then are actually passed down through DNA, and it has been proven down to a science. So, now we have, may have people who experience, generational trauma that's written in their DNA, which is going to make them more disposed to adverse symptoms and effects. And then if you have people that experience, childhood trauma, sexual assaults, things like that growing up, that can further contribute to it, as well as people, that go to war and fight for us, like our police and firefighters and our soldiers. That is just trauma, a lot more trauma. And, kind of the crazy thing is I feel like people that go into these professions, our counselors, our police officers, our firefighters, our soldiers, these are the people, these are the backbones of America. And a lot of these people came out on the other end or witnessed things that made them have that calling to go into these fields. I really feel like that together, if we can support one another and understand how trauma affects not only ourselves, but our relationships and our communities, that we can work together and encourage one another and come from a place of understanding to hopefully help uplift and inspire the world. God bless y'all. Take care.